Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Nuts and Bolts Part 4. My name is Johan, and today we're going to continue on from the past 3 weeks, Part 1, 2, and 3. And there's going to be a diagram where we're going to show you a summary on what we've been talking about. But by now, you guys would probably realize that this is probably a detailed explanation on what is the process a person goes through when they want to start the Rubycell business. Today is part 4 of Nuts and Bolts, and without further ado, let's get right to it. So, topic number 7 is talking about follow-up and follow-through. Now, I'm going to show you a brochure type thing, which we don't have in Malaysia yet, but or in the US or wherever you are right now. But what's important is that this next slide, I know it doesn't mean anything to you, but it's basically a reality check brochure. We're going to have one out soon. And it's basically a template or a guideline on how we're going to help people who start the business to be able to start why they need to do Rubycell, and basically talks about how we need to do a reality check for people. But basically, the reality check is basically to explain to your customers what is their future going to look like in the next 5 years. What's their future going to look like in the next 5 years? What's their future going to look like if they do Rubycell and they don't do Rubycell? And by bringing them to the future, what happens is you actually get the customer to be able to live the future and determine whether they want that life or not. And if they don't want that life, they can actually do something about it, okay? And so it's very important for us to be able to have that skill of bringing customers to the future and ask them the question what their life is going to look like if they don't do Rubycell for the next 3 to 5 years, okay? So now, today we're going to talk about follow-up and follow-through, okay? Now, let's pretend that follow-up basically means that you go to the customer and you've show the plan. You know, you've explained to the customer about the product. You've explained to the customer about the company and the business, et cetera, okay? You've explained to the company all these things. And what happened was that you're going to get responses from the customer, right? You're going to get, some people are going to be positive, some people are going to be negative. And so typically, let's pretend that you've STP'd, showed a plan to 10 people. 2 people, let's say, respond positively, and you proceed to explain the person how to do the business. You get them started on the business. 2 people respond negatively, and what happens is, you know, you put them as your number 101 or 102 person. Basically, you put them back into your name list, and you follow up with them on a later date. Now, if you STP 10 people, and you've got 2 positive response and 2 negative response, you've got 6 people left, right? You know, because 10 minus 4 is 6. These 6 people, they're not sure. They're not saying yes. They're not saying no. They're kind of in the middle of what's going on. And the important thing with this is, you know, yeah, the important thing with this is everyone make sure that everyone's muted. And the important thing with this is that, you know, we need to follow up with these people in order for these people to be able to make a decision. Now, when we follow up with these people, right, this follow-up process is not something that your customer is in charge of. It's something that you're in charge of. So if a customer doesn't get back to you, that's not customer's fault. That's your fault. Yeah, that's exactly right. So when we STP to 10 people, because this is your business, not their business. They don't care if they buy or don't buy, but you care. It doesn't affect them whether they buy or don't buy, but it affects you. So it's very important for you to follow up with the people that you've shown the plan to, okay? And this is something that you're in charge of, okay? So you're responsible. A lot of your prospects who you show the plan to will not be able to make a decision to say yes or no. So what you've got to do, your job is to explain to them why it's got to be a yes. You make the decision for them. Whether to take a half set or a full set, you make the decision for them. Whether to do full-time or part-time, you make the decision for them. Because they won't know what to do. And as a leader, as a businessman, or woman, you are not just selling a product anymore. You're actually influencing someone to do a business. And you're an influencer. You're someone who makes an impact on other people. As a result, when you meet other people, you should make the decision for other people. Don't be so passive. I used to be like that. I used to be so passive. I used to not, do certain things for I used to be like, oh yeah, okay, maybe I'll call you back, or I'll get back to you, or maybe you can get back to me. Don't do that, okay? Just make a decision and ask them whether it's a real yes or a no, so that both of you can move on as far as their response is concerned. Okay, so that's your responsibility. It's up to you. Make sure you take charge of that process. Okay, so follow-up is very important, and you basically need to follow up with the person especially on those 6 people who didn't make a decision. Now, what do you do when you follow up? Basically, you need to follow up within 48 hours. Okay, within 48 hours. Now, the reason why you want to follow up within 48 hours is because you guys check while it's hot. That the information that you've provided to that person is still lingering in their mind, and you need to make sure that the person is still hot or warm, at least, about the business. They're not sure. They want to say yes, but they want to think about it. So these kinds of people, you need to follow up within 48 hours. You need to call them. You need to meet them. Okay? So that's the first thing you've got to do. The second thing is you've got to establish whether this person is a consumer, a part-timer, and a full-timer. So if they're a consumer, you should talk more about the features and benefits of the product, explain the benefits of using Rubycell as a member. Okay? That's how you follow up and close a consumer. If you think that this person is a part-timer, then you should get the person to train the person to learn how to have other consumers, and also to encourage the person to have extra income, and perhaps do some home meetings on weekends, okay, because they're doing part-time. If the person is a full-timer, that's when you got to go all out and explain the vision, the value, and give them the full assurance, the confidence that the system is successful, it can make you successful, and it's duplicatable, and you duplicate this full system to that person. So you've got to have that sense by this time, whether this person is a consumer, a part-timer, or a full-timer, and based on that, you've got to get the person to be able to, you got to help that person make a decision on whether on what they need to do, depending on whether they're a consumer, part-timer, or full-timer. If they're not interested at all, then they are considered the 101st person. So you've got a 100-name list, they're considered the next person, which you follow up after you're done following up with the 100 people. Okay? So just because a person said no, that doesn't mean you throw them away. You've got to follow up with that person until that person says yes. That is how it works. Because there was a reason why you put them on your name list. Okay? And these kinds of people, you got to handle objections, you got to explain the product, and you've got to explain the documents. Basically, documents means things like our brand day slides, or our handouts, or any of our videos, or our scientific articles, whatever business tools that the person needs in order to start the business. That is basically what you're going to need to explain to what you're going to need to deliver to the other person. Okay, so that is what I mean when I say that you need to deliver the document. So these are the processes that you need to go through in order to follow up. I don't want to explain so much about this because it should be simple and clear and straight to the point. Full-timer, vision, value, and duplication system. Part-timer, more consumer, extra income, home meetings, or Facebook, or whatever. Consumer, product, features and benefits of products. Explain the benefits of becoming a member to use the products. Very simple. That is what you do. You've got to have a standard script for each of them, and you've got to become a skillful person at explaining each of the 3 things, okay? So let's pretend that, a person decides to become a consumer, or they decide to do part-time or full-time. There's this network marketing statistic where a lot of people, 90% of people will quit their business within 100 days. Actually, in Rubycell, in my group, it's actually not 90%. It's a lot lower than that. I'm very thankful that the percentage is much lower. But I think the real reason is because a lot of people, I mean, the products are good. I mean, right, the product works. Rubycell is very effective. And I truly believe that it's going to continue to be effective for a very long time. And also, a lot of people, they come for the product, but they stay for the system. And what they realize is that Rubycell is more than just a good product. It's a really good community where we support each other and we lead each other to become greater. And so that's why the chance of people giving up within the next 100 days of joining is a lot lower in our group, I believe. And so in the beginning stages, what you need to do is that you need to consistently share with this person, and this process got follow through, where you got to give them business support with documents. You got to share with them success stories. You got to keep reminding them to attend meetings, and you got to get them to write name lists, and you got to consistently motivate the person to invite people and set goals. Okay, you got to consistently do all these things individually, depending on where they're at, and you know, leader, our diamond Michelle would say that when you do this, a lot of emotion starts to come out. Like, you know, I don't need to write 100 name lists. I want to do maybe 10. You know, or like some people like they don't want to invite so many people because they don't want to be responsible. I mean, there are so many stories that happen at this point in time. And the important thing is this. The important thing is that during the beginning stages, you ignore a lot of that emotion and you just do your part by sharing with them all the required information for them to continue for the next 3 months. And when the person continues for the next 3 months, Rubycell, the chances are it will become a habit. Rubycell will become a part of their lives, and you will get to that next stage of the person's development in terms of running the Rubycell business. Okay, so again, follow through is very straightforward. It should be very simple. You share with them stories, help them assist them to attend meetings. Attend meetings basically means remind them. Okay, send reminders, even an hour, like a day before, an hour before, and like just 5 minutes before. Name list. Make sure you get them the right name list, and make sure you get them to invite and set goals. These are the things which are going to make sure that they don't give up within the next 3 months and continue doing the business so it becomes a habit. Okay? Now, after the person survives the next 100 days, the next 3 months, that's when you start to motivate the person like to become a founder's goal. What is a founder's goal? Basically, a founder's goal is someone who is actively doing the business as a gold and above. Okay? And so we used to call this active gold, but founder's goal is basically the same thing. And that is the immediate goal, the first goal that you should get anyone to achieve when they pass that 90 days. If you can do it faster, of course, it's even better. But as a minimum requirement, that's the average pace that a person would take. And so in order to do that, you would have to motivate them, and you would have to give them the skills required for them to be able to move on to become a founder's gold, And how do you do this? Well, you show by example. You need to be active. You can't expect to be doing part-time and get someone else to do full-time. That usually doesn't work. If you have a downline like that, that's because your upline is doing a lot of work for you, okay? And so you got to make sure that you show by example, and you got to make sure that whatever you want your partners to emulate or duplicate, you should be doing it yourself. You should show your passion. So it's not just because you're doing your job, but because you genuinely believe in what you're doing. And when you do this, people get moved in the heart to do the above and beyond for their business. And when people do their above and beyond, that's when the miracles really start happening. And so you've got to make sure that when you do above and beyond, your partners will be more than happy to do above and beyond. A really good example of this is when I do videos on my Instagram or Facebook of myself spraying my face and do a before-after photo. My partners are very comfortable doing it, especially the guys. Like if I told my guy partners, to do before-after photos and to spray Rubycell on their Instagram and Facebook, but I didn't do it, they probably wouldn't do it. But because I did it, the chances of them doing it are much higher, and they also don't think it's such a big deal anymore, okay? So show your passion. Now, it's very important that you don't try to change the system in order to make it fit to a partner. The reason why a partner may have difficulty fitting into the system is because they have a mind blockage in terms of agreeing with certain parts of the system. It's not a good idea to change the system to get the person to continuously do Rubycell. That's very dangerous because you're just going to have a bigger problem to deal with when that person generates volume, okay? Because everyone that person brings in is going to start performing the wrong system. And so what's important is that you don't change the system, but you continuously use the same system to get the person to be able to emulate and duplicate what you're doing. So eventually you'll be having a passive volume generation in your group. So make sure that you just don't be. That's why when I do this nuts and bolts, right, I want to talk as least as possible. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. It's very clear. Just show by example, show your passion, and teach the system. Our system nuts and bolts, we're doing up to part 4 today. Just do it as it is. There is no need to change it. You can be creative on how you do it, but don't change the content, okay? Because it's already proven to be successful. The final thing is teach with patience, teach with care, rather than with command. You know, at the end of the day, people are people. We have emotions. We are emotional beings. And when you know, before this, I was an accountant. Things are not done with care. They're done with command. And in Rubycell, we should do things with care, because when you do things with care, relationships that you build with other people are no longer about colleagues, but about friendship, and it's about raising each other higher. I wouldn't even say friendship. I would more say a comrades, you know, comrades, because when you say comrades, then the other person has sort of been through battle with you and things like that, you know, and so you feel this sense of connection with the other person. It's more than friends, you know, and that's generally what you want to do when you're teaching other people, because the truth is not everyone is going to follow the system 100% all the time. There are going to be people who sorry, there are going to be people who are, you know, who are going to divert from the system and things like that. And so make sure that you teach with patience and care. So this is just a very simple diagram where, you know, basically what it's trying to show you is that, I'm just going to get my handy spotlight here. So, you know, you are here and you're running your small business, and this is the whole process that we talked about. This is the diagram that I was talking about, where you've got your dreams and goals, name list, invite and meet, STP, blah, blah, blah. And when you have a consumer, you know, you follow up and follow through, and what's gonna happen is you're gonna have three types of people. You're gonna have small businesses, you're gonna have consumers, but your real, growth that you want to establish, the success that happens, is when you produce a new person to go through the same steps. So when you duplicate this, and when you duplicate this, then that is where you start running a big business. Okay? When you're duplicating this, that's when you start running a big business. So you have small businesses, which you will have. You may have consumers as well. But the real deal is when you start duplicating yourself to other people. Okay? That is when really the big business happens in Rubycell. And this is really the success cycle. This is where the success cycle comes in. This is when you know that you're on track. Okay? This is a very important diagram. I hope you get this. And if you don't understand, you can ask your leaders or rewind this video, because my YouTube video doesn't get tired. Okay? That was a joke. Okay. So now, ultimately, after you have a bunch of consumers and part-timers and full-timers, you're going to have a lot of partners, right? And when you have a lot of partners, eventually what you should do is you should have an anchor line. Anchor line is basically a line of network in your group where they are very firmly involved with the Rubycell culture, and they're doing the network business long term, and they're part of your team. And we say that they are part of your key leaders. And later we're going to talk about what it means to have key leaders, because the next topic, which is about creating volume, is basically after all these things happen. When you do part 7, which is follow up and follow through really well, that's when you start to have these people who will follow you for the rest of your life. And that is when you start having an anchor line. An anchor line is important because they will give you stability in your business, okay? And how do you establish anchor line? Well, there's nothing you can do about the product, and there's nothing you need to do about the product because the product's already good. What you need to do is to be an enthusiastic, exciting leader to consistently give them growth in their leadership skills. When people are growing in their leadership, when they have a group of people who are like-minded, people who you want to hang out with, who are positive, that is when you have an anchor line. That is when you have a group of people who will not leave you, okay? That is when you have a group of people who believe not just in the products, but in the plan, in the vision and philosophy that you are doing. That is really the secret, okay? So that is what you want to do. You want to have an anchor line so that you'll be able to have a stable business. Okay, so until now, we've talked about follow-up and follow-through, okay? We've talked about follow-up and follow-through. We've talked about how you need to, depending on what your prediction of that person is, how you read that person, you're going to respond in a certain way, and you're going to convert them either to a consumer, a part-timer, or a full-timer, okay? And you will have a variety of people like this, and you should. And when you start to have a variety, you start to identify those people who are going to become founder circles, founding members, founder gold. And what's going to happen is after that, you're going to have an anchor line. That's what's going to happen. When this happens at a regular pace, when you do this for a while, what happens is you start to create volume. And that's what we're going to talk about. You see, when you look at the process, it goes from use the product, study the product, and create a consumer club. Because ultimately, and this is what I want to talk about, you need to have people using the product in order for you to have an income. No point talking about leadership and motivation and all these kinds of things if no one's using the product, okay? So the fundamental of your business is use the products. You use the products and you get your members to use the product, your partners. And then you've got to study the products because you've got to explain to other people the features and benefits of the products, right? After you study the features and benefits of the products, you will educate other people. You will influence other people to do the same. And you should have around 15 to 25 consumers, okay? And this is where it all begins. They will change brand, okay? Once they change brand, the rate in which your partners consume the products is the rate in which your business is going to grow. Period. Okay. The more products they consume, the more income you have. The more the rate of consumption increases, the rate of business growth increases. Very simple. Out of them, you want to find, okay, founders gold members, okay, who are able to implement the 10 core. In the YouTube, we've put there 8 steps, which we're going to do a 10 core. But if for now, you can go look for 8 steps in the YouTube video if you don't know what 10 core is. But, a founder's goal, you're going to find these kinds of people within the consumer group, okay, or outside of that also, okay, depending on whoever's doing part-time and full-time. And target them to become founders gold first and then emerald eventually. And this is how you establish a consumer network step by step, okay? So this is basically the process. So let me summarize again, just because I want to make sure you guys understand it. You've got your name list, you suspect, prospect, and then you follow up, you follow through, and then depending on whether they're consumer or either they say no, or they are consumer, part-timer, or full-timer, and depending on what response they have, you would give them whatever they need. And when you do that really well, you have a system, which we already are explaining to you, which is nuts and bolts. And when you do the nuts and bolts really well, along with the 10 core, and you find people who can do the 10 core really well, you've got key leaders. All right? Do you get it? I hope you get it, okay? We're going to be talking about this regularly all the time for as long as we're doing this business, okay? Because it's so important for us to realize that this is the system. I know it's very a little long, but at the same time, there is nothing much to it. Okay, it's not as long as becoming a doctor. It's actually not that hard. Okay, all right. So, when we again, this is basically to give you a diagram on what you're going to coach to your downline, depending on which type of customer they are. Okay, so for example, let's say your distributor is a consumer. If they're a consumer, then you should explain to them more about small business, like extra income, those kinds of things. Don't go like vision and values and leadership and all the kind of things. They're gonna get very scared. Okay, so if they're a consumer, talk about small business, talk about extra income. You want to have extra income? You want to use your product for cheap or for free? This kind of thing. Okay. If a person is a product sales type of person, then you need to educate them more about network marketing concept. Because this person, a person that sells a lot of products really well, they're going to do, they will look like they're growing very fast, but they will also stop growing very fast. Okay. Because they're only doing sales. So this person, you need to watch out and you need to make sure you start educating them about network marketing concept, about long-term business, about building a network, okay, about passive income, okay. That's what this person needs coaching on, leadership, okay. If there is a person who is not selling product, but they're only doing recruitment, they only do leadership, they only do motivation, this person, very simple. And I probably fall into this category, recruiter. Only want to do leadership, motivation, not talk so much about product. Like this year, some of you who follow me on Facebook and Instagram will realize that I'm doing more products because, Johan also developing. I'm also learning every day. I'm always going to learn every day. And so it is very simple for people like me. No consumption, if you have consumption, you have income. You have no consumption, no income. Very simple. You do leadership and motivation, but there's no consumption, there's no income. Okay? And that you've got to give it straight to the recruiter because normally recruiters are very motivated. And if you tell them something like this, they will listen. Okay. If they have any objections, then you just handle the objection, whatever the objection is. But normally, doesn't matter how good you are at recruiting people. If you can't sell products, then you're not going to be able to do any business very well. Okay. It's not just network marketing. It's any other business that you do. Of course, you will have some people who are balanced between sales and recruitment. This is a 10-core leader. This is really a valuable person, and this is like we call it low-hanging fruit or the ideal person that you want to look for. Someone who's balanced between being able to sell products and also able to do leadership and motivation. And so it's very important for you to be able to do this, for you to be able to identify what kind of distributor this person is, so that you will be able to give the right coaching to that person. Okay. Now, if you were to ask me, how exactly do you coach a person to do? How do you coach a person in terms of the network marketing concept? Well, this is really, if we talk about that, that's going to be another hour, 2 hours. And really, there's going to be training programs coming out after this, which stem off of our nuts and bolts. But this is really just a framework. If you want to know more about how to do things in detail, ask your leader, but also we are constantly releasing information on how to do these things so that you'll be able to do it. Some of us, usually we don't have to learn all of it because we're usually good at all of it except one or two. So we just need to learn one or two of them, okay? And we usually have colleagues who are better at other things. And it's good to work with partners. Like let's say I'm good at recruiting, but I'm not so good at product selling. So I have partners who are good at product selling, but they're not good at recruiting. So I work with them as a team. Okay, like I have a leader named Michelle. She's really good at product selling. But when it comes to recruiting, I'm a little better. Okay, and so we work together so that we are able to build a bigger business together. And that's what teamwork is about. That's how you should work together. Okay. So additional notes. If you approach someone else and you don't want to look like a salesperson, don't think like a salesperson. Explain the business. You're a business person. If you're a business person, all these things that we explained to you until now about nuts and bolts will matter to you. Okay? You will not say things like, oh, why can't we have it so simple? Why can't I just sell products? Well, you can, but you're just becoming a salesperson. You don't become a business person anymore. A lot of people I mean, there's nothing wrong with becoming a salesperson, okay? There's nothing wrong. But yeah, if that's what you want. But usually when you do network marketing, a lot of people want to look like a businessman, you know, and that's what it really means to do a business. And so you've got to explain the business, okay? You've got to understand the nuts and bolts. Ding, 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 okay? Nuts and bolts, okay? So I hope you get that. Know that customers can become distributors. Plan and prepare. So what this basically means is don't doubt your customers. You'll be very surprised at what happens to people in their life. If there's anything I learned in my 33 years of life, it's this. Anything can happen anytime to anyone, okay? Anything can happen, okay? You don't know what people are thinking. I know that I am responsible for my life, but when it comes to other people's life, you don't know what's going to happen because you don't know what people are thinking. So consumers can become distributors, distributors can become consumers. Plan for it and prepare for it. Make sure you have a system running, not people running, okay? Because system is more important than people because the system produces the people, okay? Now, let me give you one more example, which is if you build a nest for pigeons, only pigeon will come. If you build a nest for an eagle, only eagles will come. So don't blame the bird, blame the nest. Your system is your nest, okay? I hope you get that. Third thing, know and understand key technical knowledge. Use a variety of business tools. What this basically means is we do need to study a bit about our products. Like for example, with Rubycell, you need to know what's stem cell because you're selling a stem cell skincare, you know. So at least you need to know what is stem cell. At least you need to know what is a skincare. At least you need to know what is the common skincare routine people have. What are people's common skin problems? How do you overcome those things with the product? These are some basic key technical knowledge which you do need to study if you want to do this business, okay? And so those are some key technical knowledge that you're gonna need to know. And think about the needs of the customers first, okay? At the end of the day, right, because a lot of people ask me this question, how do I know what to say to the customer? Like, how do I, what magic do I use? And if there was a magic, you know, the magic is, what is my, think like my customer. What is the customer thinking? If you can know what the customer is thinking, and this sounds a lot harder than it actually is. It's actually not that hard to think, to know what the customer is thinking. Do you know what's the secret to finding out what the customer is thinking? Ask them. It's very simple. What do you, what do you think? What is stopping you? What is blocking your mind? Do you think it's cheap or expensive? Ask them in the beginning. If you're very good, you don't even need to ask. Maybe you've got some other technique. But the most basic form of finding out what your customer is thinking, just ask them. Okay, it's very simple. Okay, guys, today we have finished part 7 and I think it's part 7 and part 8. Part 7, part 8. Yes, that's right. Yeah, we finished part 7 and part 8. Thank you so much for watching. Now, I know that today was a very fast session because I didn't want to make something simple so complicating, okay? And it's very straightforward, but very, 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 very important that you follow this system. Now, again, I say it one more time, how you do it is up to you, but what you do does not change because that is a Rubycell system. That is nuts and bolts, okay? So thank you very much for watching. We're part 4 done today. We're gonna do part 5 and part 6, and we're gonna finish soon. And once part 6 is done, we're gonna do a lot of other trainings out of the nuts and bolts. Meaning we're gonna go deeper into each part in nuts and bolts, and that's basically our training system. Okay, it all comes from the nuts and bolts. Okay, so I'll see you guys next week. I'm gonna turn off the recording, and then we're gonna have a more casual conversation.